pose or Padmasana. So in the photo in your manual, it's hands and legs, but it's just the legs. So just so you know, if you bring your palms together at the center of your chest, you can do it. It's fine. Keep your thumbs and your pinkies together, but peel open the center. And then peel open the center of your palms so that if I were to pour water in your hands, it would hold on. Okay? If you have carpal tunnel, I would be gentle here because this isn't going to help. So this is Padma Mudra. Mm-hmm. This is your lotus mudra. So this is the gesture of being open to receive. So this is literally filling up your cup. So if you ever need to remind yourself of that portion on contemplation, the Yoga Sutra Book 1, this is it. Padma. 4, you can release your hands, shake it out. For lotus, I always teach it in 2 parts, so do one leg at a time. So extend your legs out in front of you, and it's Padmasana. Can you say Padmasana?
Padmasana.
Okay. Pick up your left foot, bring your left foot into your right hip crease. So let's talk about mobility. If your knee isn't touching the ground, we don't do the other leg. A lot of people are like, what do you mean? I want to. So if your knee touches the ground, it means that we're not going to put any extra pressure on our hip joint or our knee joint, and it's not going to hurt us by doing both. So if you have your knee is close to the ground, option to try it with your other leg as well. So bring your right foot into your left hip crease on top. Most people aren't going to be able to do this, not in our society. So with one leg, it's Ardha. So can you say Ardha?
Ardha.
Padmasana.
Padmasana.
2 legs is just Padmasana. If the reason why we don't want to push it is because if we push it, you're going to cut off circulation. And then there's where the flow of energy is lacking isn't helpful, right? Let's try the other leg. So extend your leg out. Bring your right foot into your left hip crease. And you might notice it's way different on this side. And you can play with bringing the other foot in. A good rule of thumb is if you have to yank it, we shouldn't do it.
Are we trying to get it all the way up to the hip crease,
yes.
like in tree?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, like in hop tree.
Yeah.
Okay. So a thing that we can do is you can roll your mat or a towel underneath you. A block is a little too high, usually, but that'll change the tilt of your pelvis. And when our pelvis tilts, our femurs shift as well. So it may be a little bit more comfortable for you if we have something underneath your hips. Yeah, and if you have to pull it too much. You can sit at the wall and it makes it easier too. Yeah. So the idea that we can do this with ease is the goal. If we can't do it with ease, that's okay. We know that our proportions are all different. Not everybody's bodies are meant to do this, but the shift of your pelvis will be key. This is one of those poses where you wouldn't say, if you don't get it now, keep trying. Because some people can't. So to do that would be taking away all the validation of them. Any pain?
No. I mean, half lotus is cool, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. I usually teach half lotus. Like, I'll just do one at a time, and then we'll move on. Because easy pose, in my mind, the people that created lotus pose didn't realize that we'd be so immobile as a society, and I feel like that'd be fine if we did it in easy pose. So for me, it's like, the necessity of us doing a specific pose feels like the opposite of what Patanjali means. Mm-hmm. So I don't really see the benefit of that much lateral rotation. When you're sitting up tall, it supports healthy posture. If we're yanking into it, obviously it does not support healthy posture. Externally rotates to stretch your inner thighs and hamstrings, and getting in and out of it strengthens your abductors, the muscles that bring your knees away from the center line of your body. So you might want to write in there, one leg is great. Like one leg, and one leg is Ekapada, or half is Ardha. So you can say either. It's either one leg lotus, which is Ekapada Padmasana, or half lotus, which is Ardha Padmasana.
So getting into it and out of it, are you supposed to just be able to do that with your legs only?
No, you can use your arms.
Okay.
That'd be cool though.
Yeah.
Some people can.
I'm just wondering if that would, like, back when it was created or whatever, if that was the original way of getting into it.
That's a really good question.
Like maybe you're already like doing this or something, and then you're just legs just like.
Probably.
So.
I mean, maybe. I feel like probably. Yes.
Ekapada is
One leg.
and then Pada,
Ardha.
Ardha. Thank you.
Ardha is half.
Oh, yeah, it wouldn't be Pada, Padmasana, but feet.
Feet, lotus pose.
I'm sorry, Eka,
Ekapada is one leg or one foot.
how,
Ardha is half.
how do you spell that again?
EKA. EKA, like EKG.
Mhm.
Pada, P-A-D-A. Pada, pada, pada.
And then
Ardha. Ardha. I just said
Ardha.
Ardha.
Ardha is.
Ardha is half.
Yeah.
Ardha. Ardha.
That's what I thought.
And wait, the Ekapada is one
One leg.
leg.
So Ekapada we use interchangeably with, one leg and one foot. We use that interchangeably. Why? Just because it's easy. And usually we mean one foot. Okay, and Lotus Mudra is base of your wrists sealed together, thumbs sealed together, and pinkies sealed together, and that's a gesture of being open. So it's your receptacle, right, at the center of your heart. This is called your Anahata. Anahata, your heart. It's a good one. Really?
Mhm. I do it a lot in class, in tree.
So the universe can fill your cup.
I had a teacher once that was how that was our,
Yeah.
one of the ways to, express your tree, and I just loved it, and it just spoke to me, so I always do it.
Well, and it's such a gesture of surrendering. Surrender to whatever it is that you believe in. Modifications, one leg or sit up on a block or a towel. And I do not yank on people in this pose. No hands-on adjustments. You could always do that, I got you, girl, but nothing needed beyond that. Okay. Any questions on lotus pose or Padmasana?
I've never experienced that in a yoga class before.
Okay.
Is it common?
No, it's challenging for us. And if you travel, yeah, super common. Erin, could you teach everybody into lotus pose?
Absolutely.
Thank you. So let's go verb your body part direction. You don't have to do an intention, but say the pose name first.
Okay.
Cool.
So into, Padmasana.
Yeah.
From easy pose, bring your right ankle up to your left hip crease. And if your knee is touching the floor, then you can bring your left ankle up to your right hip crease. If this doesn't feel good for your body, which for most of us it doesn't, you can go into Ardha Padmasana, which would be half lotus. Adjust the goodness that you were given so that this position feels good. And then you can bring your hands into Namaskar or open up your fingers with your thumb and pinky connected into Lotus Mudra.
Awesome. My only suggestion would be when you say a Sanskrit term, say the English really quick, because otherwise the people in the room that don't know are gonna be like, "Oh,
Okay.
he never speaks English."
Okay.
So just when you say after, I love your use of Sanskrit, but after Padmasana, lotus pose.
Okay.
After Namaskar, that's hands at heart center. Just
Okay.
the first time, and then after that, you can just
Okay.
say lotus or Padmasana. You don't have
Okay.
to go into the English.
Okay.
Good. Awesome.
Thanks.
Great job.
Would one of the alignment cues for this possibly be to sit up tall?
Yeah. Especially because most people are gonna get into it like this. Yeah.
Would you say tilt your pelvis forward?
Yes.
Elongating your spine?
Uh-huh. Yep. But then you're gonna have to talk about what a pelvis is and how do we tilt it forward. A lot of people
Okay.
don't know, like they think they know what an anterior tilt of the pelvis is, but they don't. So what I would offer is that, once a month we go into the talk about your pelvic bowl. And we just, cow and cat's a great way to get people into it. But some people will do years of yoga before they realize that they haven't actually been tilting their pelvis at all because it's just so immobile. So that's more of a deepening cue. That's more,
Gotcha.
that would be like my theme for the class. If you were focused on like root chakra, I would say, let's talk about your pelvis. Let's talk about Kegling. Let's talk about all that.
Okay.
Because it's not common knowledge.
Uh-huh. Could you say elongate your spine as if there was a string pulling up from the top of your head?
That's a good one. People usually get that. And I don't assume people don't know anything about anatomy, but an anterior and a posterior tilt of your pelvis, not everybody knows what that means.
Yeah, 'cause when you said tilt your pelvis
Which way did you think?
forward, I thought this way.
Yeah,
if I was
exactly.
coming back curves my back.
Yeah, and you're an intelligent human who's practiced yoga for a long
Right.
time. Like it's really, it's
Yeah.
just it's a higher, we'll talk about this in the next couple weeks, but it's a little bit more of a challenging thing to articulate well.
But for us, as people who are knowledgeable, which way would be in this pose?
Anterior.
Anteriorly?
Yeah.
So tucking,
No, the other way.
Shifting.
Yeah,
dropping the balls forward?
yes,
Okay.
which is an
Yeah.
anterior tilt of your
So
pelvis.
the top of your pelvis.
Tilt the top of your pelvis forward, right?
Yeah.
Because to me,
Twerking.
if I wanted you to do
Cow
that, I would
pose.
say tuck your pelvis under.
Yes. So cow is an anterior tilt.
Yes.
Cat is a posterior tilt. So when you elongate your back, that is a posterior tilt because it's your back, when we're rounding our back.
So the bowl
Yeah.
is turning this way.
Yes.
Versus this way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Let's bring your hands to your hips. So thumbs to the back, fingers in the front. So let's drop your thumbs down, lift your fingers up. This is a posterior tilt. It's tilting back because you have a bowl. You're holding a bowl right now.
Mhm.
Now thumbs up, fingers down. That is an anterior tilt.
Mm-hmm.
Most of us women have more of an anterior tilt naturally. So go back and that's cat pose. That's a posterior tilt. And go forward, that's cow pose, anterior.
Mhm.
So most men and people, you can shake it out, let it go. Men and women that identify as men. People that identify themselves as male. How about that?
Like it.
I'm trying to guess. Will have, their pelvis will be much more balanced than ours. It won't be a severe anterior tilt. Ours is something like 15 degrees. It's not that much. But most of us as women in general, I'm just going to say general terms, when people that identify as women, we have too much of an anterior tilt, usually. So we don't, except for in seated poses, it's a lot of people have challenges with the anterior tilt. Yeah.
Is that because of the ligaments are naturally the more loose we see?
I think it's because of a lot of reasons. I think heels.
Yeah.
I think our potentially the way that society has told us is sexy and attractive to stand,
Mhm.
right? With our butt out, which is not good. Poor posture, the way that we sit at desks, the lumbar support, the lack of lumbar support in cars. I think it's a combination. It's complicated to say.
Yeah.
But especially women that have had babies, yes, that'll for sure. Any pregnancy will exaggerate, and you've, I'm sure, worked on a lot of people that have had babies. It goes from 15 to like 20, like
Does it go back?
No.
not without help, and not always.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Everything, all the ligaments in your body, especially in that area,
they relax.
they loosen up to get ready to push the baby out.
And then for as long as you're nursing, they're still loose
Mm-hmm.
until you stop nursing.
Well, as long as you're lactating.
There you go. It's better.
So, some people lactate long after they finish nursing.
Yay.
Is that something where even if you were to work out during pregnancy, that would just happen anyway because
Yes.
it's meant to do that so
Yes.
the baby can come
Yes.
out?
Yes.
Yeah, and the
Yes.
curve
One of
gets
the hormone
exaggerated
changes
in your
body.
back. Just the literal weight pulling you forward
Right.
literally pulls you and exaggerates it.
And your tummy muscles are like,
Yeah, it's like a
Even if you do sit-ups throughout your pregnancy, which some people do.
it's amazing.
has nothing to do. Yeah, it's these guys in here. Like it's all of that, all of those tiny.
It just sounds so painful. My hips are hurting just looking
So just
and
like-
discussing.
I know I have a coworker who's 22 and she's having her first baby and she's 14 weeks pregnant and I've worked on her throughout and she's like, can you just what's happening?
Just-
What's happening in
Just
my
press
body?
them in, girl.
Oh,
Yeah,
I know.
poor
She's like,
thing. Already? Oh no.
Well, she's like
She's little.
tiny. She's like a flea. She's so little. So she already has like a bump. It's wonderful.
Those like full body pillows.
Yeah.
Those are amazing.
Yeah.
You sleep, like curve your whole body around it.
Just like,
wow.
wow.
It's so scary.
Let's go to page 74, please. So it's runner's lunge or Anjaneyasana. And this is Evelyn. So Anjaneyasana.
Anjane.
Asana.
Awesome.
So this stretches, so the front leg, we're stretching the front of the left leg. the front of the right leg and the back of the left leg. So on the right leg, we're stretching your hip flexors, so your psoas and your iliacus, and that has to do with the tilt of your pelvis, which we'll talk about, as well as your quads. The left leg will stretch your adductors and hamstrings. The face down is always calming your central nervous system. So it's your parasympathetic nervous system response that gets activated, if you will, but really it's just we're calming the flight or flight response, which is your sympathetic nervous system. Let's write in modifications, fists, forearms, or blocks. So holding on, usually in runner's lunge, you're not there for a sec. It takes a while to get into it. You'll do it towards the end of class to stretch out your hips. So you'll bring your hands down, but if they get tired, your wrists get tired, fists or blocks. You can also pad the back knee. Most people like to turn their knee out in this pose, but that's just a variation. So, and what I mean by that is your front leg, once you're in it, to rotate.
Yeah.
And that just changes the fibers that we're stretching from outside of the hip to inside of the hip. So I just give people the option. There's no wrong, there's no right. It's whatever they feel like they need to get stretched. But I caution people, I don't know if you ever listen to people breathe in runner's lunge, but the whole room is usually full of a couple of people that are like, and what we know about when we can't breathe normally is your nervous system is crazy alert. There's no, it slows things down when we push through pain, especially when we're stretching. So if you can't breathe comfortably, back off. And I usually explain that to people, not as a weakness, just, hey, if it's hard to breathe, back off just a little, and then close your eyes and relax. And usually people will listen to that. I don't adjust in this one. Okay, let's get into it. So come into tabletop. The two ways that I like to get into it, but you can get into it in lots of different ways, is from tabletop or downward facing dog. We haven't done down dog yet, so perhaps if you would like to get into downward facing dog, you can. Otherwise, tabletop, come up onto all fours. So all the lunges, I think we talked about this before, but just a reminder, are Anjaneyasana. That was good. That was good. So mind your shoulders wherever you're at, right? Notice where your elbows are pointing. Notice your wrists, whether you want to turn them out or not. Let's take a couple of breaths here. Roll your shoulders back and down, away from your ears so your neck gets long. Then, without kicking the wall behind you, lift your right leg high. So this is 3-leg downward facing dog. Take a breath in. Exhale, low lunge. Bring your right foot up between your hands. Now drop your left knee down. Option to pad. Runner's lunge. Walk your right foot forward. Maybe your left knee farther back. That's it. You can bring your hands inside your right knee. There you go. Option to roll on the outer edge of your right foot. Find a spot that stretches that you can breathe comfortably. If your wrists don't love this, come to your fists or consider going down to your forearms. This is a yin pose as well. People don't love it in yin because it's a 5-minute hold, and this is bordering on aggressive. But it is a yin pose. You won't see it in hatha or bikram, but you will see it in vinyasa. Can you say Anjaneyasana? I know we're not super warm, so let's get out of it and switch sides. So just plant your hands, come back to tabletop or downward facing dog. Yes?
Is lizard pose just on your forearms?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a fun other pose too. So bring your left leg high. Find your low lunge, left foot up between your hands. The same thing on the other side. And if you're in a room full of people that have done yoga before, you can tell. And if you say, hey, we're doing the same thing on the other side, you don't have to repeat all of it. Use your best judgment. Walk your left knee forward. Bring your hands to the inside of your left knee. So there's something that I heard once called Warrior 4, which is not a thing, but just so you know, walk your left foot farther forward. Then reach your left arm underneath your left knee. Then reach your right arm underneath, just out to the side, excuse me. So it's like you're creating a cross.
Ooh.
So that's Warrior 4.
Up in the air?
Yeah, there you go.
Oh.
It seems very dangerous
Yeah,
to
no,
me,
thank you.
so I don't teach it, but just so you know, if Warrior 4, that's what it
Are
is.
you supposed to do that with your knee like straight up?
That
or
seems
knee
really
down?
unsafe.
Does it matter?
Up, straight up. Yeah, it feels like a way to break your elbow.
Alignment things
Yeah.
with knees over.
Yeah, there's a lot of poses that you're like, what is the benefit? That doesn't functionally seem like as a human I need to be able to
And
do
it
that.
just
But
looks cool.
well, maybe it was an Instagram photo. There's a fun layer, right? Like some of the poses we do just because they're fun and challenging.
Like
Sure.
I feel like that
Yeah.
doesn't even look cool, it just looks weird.
Yeah. Any pain in this pose?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so
It's just fun.
let's have you taught last time. So
Yes.
Raina, could you please teach everybody into runner's lunge on the right, and then Lauren, could you please teach everybody into runner's lunge on the left, like they've never done it before?
And when you say on the left or the right, it's dependent on your front foot.
Yes.
All right. Anjaneyasana, runner's lunge from tabletop or downward facing dog. You're gonna bring your right foot, because I'm the right side or left? Yeah, right side. Between your two hands. And between your two hands, walk your right foot forward. Lower down, your knees are lowered, and then bring both hands to the left of your foot. If it's hard to breathe, back off a little. There's an option to roll on the outer edge of your right foot for extended hip stretch.
Nice little benefit you threw in there. Did you start in tabletop?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's why the knee was down.
Well, I thought she said from tabletop or downward facing dog.
Oh,
I
got
did,
it.
and then I looked and I was like, oh, they're all
Because I-
tabletop.
Oh,
ended-
okay.
Well, I wasn't in tabletop.
She was looking,
so
she was
I
like, I'm on
ended
my knee.
With still just in low lunge like this, but with my hands like this.
Got you.
Because
Yeah,
you didn't say
exactly.
to put your back.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I read the cue and I was like, oh, we're all from tabletop. And I was like, okay, foot's already down then. You don't need to go in that cue,
Okay.
but thank you, yeah.
Good job.
Just
You
from my
did a really
experience
good
just now,
job.
I would
Sorry,
just
sandwich.
choose where they're coming from.
Yeah.
Either say tabletop or downward dog.
Yeah.
It's
Don't
the first
say
time I've ever
either
gone
or.
into that from tabletop.
Did you like it or no?
I did, and it felt,
Better.
no, it felt good. It felt more accessible, which I like
Awesome.
for different populations and different people that are not jazzed about being in three-legged dog.
Yes.
Yeah,
So there's a
exactly.
whole group of people that three-leg dog to low lunge is impossible.
Yeah.
Just to
But you're
it
fine.
just doesn't work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Good. I'm
So
glad.
I like, that was wonderful.
Nice. Good job.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Want to do left side?
Yeah. Okay.
Let's see. I think you're in it.
Downward facing dog. Anjaneyasana.
Mhm.
Lift your left leg high into the air and bring your left foot down in between your hands. Then extend your right leg backwards towards the back of the room and let your right leg rest on the ground. You can untuck your toes. Make sure that your left knee is directly over your left ankle. You can scoot your left foot forward if you need to. And you will feel a stretch in your left hamstring and the right hip. So kind of lean forward a bit into the pose. If you like, you can move both your hands onto the inside of your left leg. And you're welcome to go onto your wrists if this feels better, or not your wrists, your fists or your forearms. And if you feel that you're a little bit short of breath, breathing quickly, come out of it a little bit just so that you can get the full benefit of the pose. And you can let your left leg fall out to the side for a little bit of a different stretch. And that is all.
Good job.
Sorry, Erin, that I just made you do
Oh, I don't care.
the.
Oh, no,
I was
it
like, well, I'm
was
gonna do something
just an
different right
interesting
Yeah.
Modification.
Yeah, exactly.
modification, which
Yeah.
I'd like to just have those in my toolbox. The challenge with me for runner's lunge, which I don't know if it's normal. If I'm on my wrists, it's great, except for ouch wrists. So I feel like I need to go to my forearms, but then it's too much of a stretch.
What about your fist?
Yeah,
Yeah,
fists
fists
nice.
are, I'm still not in love with using my fists for reasons unknown.
Okay. Where are you pointing your big cinnamon rolls?
Forward.
Yeah. Do you have a bend in your
Sure.
elbows when you do it? What if you
I
bend
just
your
don't know
elbows
if this
out
is
a little?
something like I could maintain in a yin class for a longer period of time.
So let's turn around and face the wall. I'll show you a variation. Come down on your knee. Let's bring your whatever foot forward, doesn't matter. So foot almost to the wall. And then bring your hands to the wall.
Oh, well, there's that.
And then option to roll.
That's lovely.
So you can actually go all the way. And that's a fun.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's what I love.
it's like child's pose at the
Love
wall
that.
with the stretch. You can
Yeah.
switch legs too, just so you feel balanced.
Yeah, I like that on my shoulders.
Yeah, I really liked it. Okay, that's amazing.
Yeah.
It
And-
helps to calm down too, because of the face on the wall.
When you feel so, you feel so supported. You're cuddling the wall. It's nice.
I love that.
Or a half pigeon like that is also
Yeah.
super
Yeah.
helpful.
We did that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, just because it's like finding the happy medium, but that's amazing.
And if you do two blocks under each forearm, it's a lot easier than forearm all the way down. So the 3-leg downward dog to 3-leg tabletop, the difference there is, so 3-leg down dog. Can you get into it, please? Downward facing dog. So just lift your right leg high, and then low lunge. So in this, it's both strengthen your upper body and the mobility to bring your knee all the way in. But will you come into tabletop and lift your left leg high? This, we're taking the strength component out, but we're still focusing on the mobility. So bring your left foot up between your hands. This is a whole lot, it's difficult, mobility-wise, it's harder because there's less clearance, but it takes away the strength out of it. So it's good to do both, and you can just relax. Thank you.
But I mean, just holding your leg up like this, though, that's still a strength thing. Right?
Yeah, I was talking about shoulders, but yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and doing that is a great thing to do. Tabletop with a leg extended, then knee to nose, knee to nose, knee to nose, knee to nose, then foot between your hands is a great prep for 3-leg down dog to low lunge.
Yeah.
So it depends on what you're going for, but sometimes just the right leg high to low lunge over and over again is what all people need to be able to do it. Or right leg high and down dog to knee to nose, to right leg high to low lunge, to right leg high to knee to nose. They'll hate you for it, but it's both mobility and strength. Okay. Any other questions about runner's lunge?
So I noticed, I looked at my reflection and I had actually like tented my fingers like this. Is that dangerous?
When?
Is that bad? Just like,
I'm really glad that you asked that about tenting. So what do you feel when you do that? Is your weight,
less pressure on my wrists.
but where do you feel the pressure? Do you guys see what color her hands are turning?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I would say is if you're just using your fingers to touch and you're holding yourself up,
Right.
awesome. But I think your gut is already telling you, and I don't know that you have to ask, that pressure here isn't the smartest thing to do, nor is it necessary. Because we have so much, grip strength is one thing, but your potential for hurting yourself because you have all your weight forward is higher. So for you, if you're like, I'm not using very much of my weight, it's little, and I don't use my hands for a living, and I don't have tendonitis, and I don't have carpal tunnel, and there's no pain in my wrists, it's probably okay. But in general, I avoid tenting at all costs. Just because our hands are super important. Grip strength, yes, do everything you can to strengthen it. But the tenting with the pressure, anytime there's pressure and it's unstable, because this is a weird, unnatural, it's like a weird position for your hand to be in, and then put weight onto it. So my thought would be, if your hands are turning white, you're cutting off the flow of blood, which means we're cutting off the flow of energy, which means we're slowing down our healing, which means I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
But if every once in a while you're like,
I just want to feel like Spider-Man.
well, and I don't know if you know your history of rheumatoid arthritis or any sort of arthritis in your family, in the women in your family, or the men, I guess. But in an older population, I wouldn't ever suggest tenting because of arthritis, because of the prevalence. So it's like, why would I suggest it to a 20-year-old if I wouldn't suggest it to an 8-year-old? I wouldn't. However, if I see someone tenting, unless I see that they have RA, and it's unless I see that, I'm not going to say, hey, if you're tenting, stop, it's dangerous. What I'll say is plant your palms firmly, press down through your fingers, lift up out of your chest. Kind of not watering the tent.
I like it.
Let's not water the tent.
My other question
Yeah.
is in 3-leg down dog.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard in different classes sometimes they'll say like bring one of your legs to the center and then
Yeah.
and extend. Like, are you supposed? I mean, mean, is it two different things? Does it matter? Because I'm kind of thinking like, well, maybe if you wanna make sure that your hips are level, then it would be better to just keep one leg or the other just where it would be, like in fold down or facing
Yeah.
dog. But also I can see the balance of having it in the middle too, because it makes it easier.
Yeah.
So I'm just,
Will you pop into down dog and we'll talk about it?
yeah.
So, in downward facing dog. So, your back right now is a nice long line. But if you were to, let's bring your left foot closer to your right, so to the center. So it's not maybe super perceptible, but she did shift a little.
Mhm.
So now her whole body is having to compensate.
Yeah.
Which,
Yeah, I feel like.
right? And so lift your right leg high. It's a balancing gesture, but your body is having to compensate. So it might be easier for you to stabilize your hips when your feet are together, but let's bring your feet hip width distance apart.
I'm sliding.
Sorry. No, that's fine. I don't have a towel, but you can come down to your forearms if you'd rather.
That's okay.
Then lift your left leg high. Here, I got you, girl. Okay, so somebody's sliding, come down, hold on. That way they don't slide. It's a safety issue. Now lower your left hip down. So it's harder. Now keep your leg lifted though.
Oh.
Yeah. Then turn your big toe
Yeah.
point down. There you go. So it's harder, which means
Yeah.
yeah. Just lift your.
Yeah.
So her, yeah,
It is
you can
hard.
come up. So, but your back was straight the whole time, which
Yeah.
means we're not adding unnecessary compensation patterns.
Mm-hmm.
Because our life is full of compensation patterns. I typically don't want to add more. So I feel like it's probably fine to do it both ways, but the benefits of the feet staying where they're at,
Yeah.
in my mind, based off of my experience, outweigh the feet together.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say it's wrong.
Well, that was my instinct with it as well. It just seemed like it would be
Well, and it's foot
more
placement
stable
too,
thing.
right? So in Warrior 2, it's a tightrope. So if your feet start together, will you? Here, you can. I'll do it. Your hands are zippy. You did a great job.
Get away.
No, it's fine. So if your feet are together, then when you go into Warrior 2, I don't have to adjust anything. My feet are already on one line.
Right.
But if your feet are separate, then when I do it, your foot actually has to come closer to your hand.
Mm.
Otherwise, you have to readjust your
Yeah.
back foot. I just say bring your foot between your hands, now readjust your feet. That seems to be easy for
Yeah.
most people. But I feel like maybe it's ease of teaching. It's easier to teach if your feet are together. If you are, like, let's see if I can replicate. If you are rock solid in your upper body, you can do it without shifting your spine, so without creating extra tension patterns. But usually that transition is so fast
Yeah.
that you're more likely to just be like, all right, do.
Yeah.
You know, and it's fun. You
Yeah.
get into it.
Because it's more like twisty and like.
And
Well, and it's dancey and it's fun.
Yeah.
So I would think if you want to do it, just make sure the shoulders are stable. But for people with no back injuries or no fascially restricted patterns that are having a negative impact on their life, it's probably okay to do both.
Mm.
But my assumption is I don't know what's going on, so let's just do the safest thing.
I do have one more.
I love it. Do it.
Okay.
Ask it. Now's the time.
Something else that people always say in class is to like suction cup your hands
Yeah.
and press into the pads of your fingers or something like that. And to me, I'm just like, what? Like, I don't know what that means.
Ah,
Like, just because to me,
Do-
I'm like, does suction cup mean like press more into your palm? But then they say press your finger pads down, and then I think
That's what I think
suction
is
cup
tenting.
like this. Yeah, tenting.
So just pulling up a little.
Okay, so it is like a
It's
tent.
like a mini tent.
Okay, that's what I thought, and then I was like, but that doesn't, like, why is that beneficial?
Ah, good question.
Yeah.
So tenting, if you do this, just note, like, you have to actually do this. What's happening? Muscularly, not a lot. If you do this, it's your palmar aponeurosis.
Right.
That's the connective tissue in your palm. You're engaging muscles. So it's the lifting out of your wrists. It's the flexors. They're starting to work to help you take the weight from here.
Okay.
So this is contracting. Whenever you do this, it's not the same. Does that
So
make
yeah, it's just like, so you
It's-
can have your
it's-
hand flat versus
Yes,
like
yes.
then.
Lifting the
raising.
center of your,
There's an article I think Yoga Journal had a couple years ago about imagine if there's like a teeny tiny little cupcake under your
palm and you just didn't want to mush it. Like a little cupcake.
Yeah, I've heard that in class
I
before.
think it's adorable.
Yeah.
I once used a teacher said, imagine that there's a slice of pizza between each finger.
Oh,
She
cute.
wanted you to open up.
That would make me hungry.
Yeah.
But that's cute.
Cool, then I think I've been doing that correctly.
Okay.
But for some reason, I was like, does section cut mean more of like this shape or more of like,
Well, and when
that's why I was like, what does suction cut?
you'll see people that will be tenting, like advanced practitioners, advanced physical asana practitioners. They'll tent, but they'll have none of their body weight in their hands, so it doesn't matter. Does that
But
make
then
sense?
at that point, it's like,
Why are you even doing it?
Yeah.
Because it's pretty,
Yeah, exactly.
or because they like to. Yeah.
But then it's like, then wouldn't that be just making everybody else think, oh, I can just go like this then?
Yeah, but when you practice, do you think I have to be an example for all the people around me, or do you think I'm just here for myself? Ooh.
Well, I definitely wouldn't want to do something that I think if someone else were to replicate it, that might hurt them.
Okay. Then yeah.
I don't know, because like when you told me, there was one time when I was up front and one of the newer students was in the back and you told me after class that he was like watching me and following what I was doing, and I was like, oh, what was I doing? Like, did I do anything bad? Like, this.
I did not mean to tell you that for that reason.
No. It was like, oh, great, because I felt
Well,
like I was doing the right
even if
thing,
we
but
don't
at the same time, like, what if my habit would be bad for somebody else to replicate, even if it works for me?
Yeah, and as a teacher, you can be that role model. As a student, you get to choose if you want to be that role model. I will say that even though at this studio, it's not our rule that you have to be good to be in the front, it's just an innate thing in a studio or in a class or an environment that you go in, the people in the front are going to be the smart kids. We can fight it. I think you should. I think we should all be around mixed with the people. I hate the idea of having a good row, and that's why I don't practice in the front. I don't put a mat out front. Very rarely I do, because I like to break the fourth wall because we're all students. But yeah, you get to choose whether you be that example. That's nice of you though.
Sorry, clarifying question. That last combo was about if you would instruct the people to put the middle weight, like bring your foot centered for three-legged dog.
Yes.
Okay, well done.
Yeah, let's circle back. Hold on. So feet hip width distance apart is great.
Technically the best, yes.
I don't like to say that, but
No, it's keeping your back straight and like
yeah.
everything, in line instead of.
and it's
always
harder,
looking
which
for
means
bouncing.
like
Exactly.
if I have a choice between what's
Has more
easier or
muscle
harder, like let's
strength.
do the one that's
Needed, yeah.
That seemed more natural to me, even though it's
Yeah.
more difficult, just on the basis of alignment.
Right, you
that
should just feel the
seems
weight
like
to
the way
leg
it
up.
should be done.
And,
Yeah.
And what's funny is that people will ask you, and you'll tell them, and they'll disagree. They'll say, "Well, I like it when I do this," and you say, "Awesome, keep doing that.
Yeah.
You got it, girl." We can't know what's going on. We move forward with the information that we have, and we can explain though our reason behind it. Any other questions for runner's lunch? No? Okay, let's do the next pose. We will learn about, so it's page 75. It's half monkey or half splits pose. And I feel like monkey is such that word doesn't hold at all a light to the story behind this. So it's Hanuman. It's named after Hanuman. And that's one of the myths that we will learn. I think I told you the mini version of it, Hanuman.
Sounds familiar, but-
Ram and Sita.
No, I don't think
Ram
so.
Ram.
No, we didn't, maybe I missed it, but I don't think so.
Well, we'll get deeper into it, but I'll tell you like the basic story of Hanuman. So he was a god, and when he was a kid, he was very mischievous. And one day he reached up for this peach that was in the sky, and he took a bite. Little did he know it was the sun, and then everything on the planet died because he ate the sun. Oops, my bad. So the other gods struck him down. And his mom was so devastated that she went to the gods and said, "Hey, is there anything that we can do?" Like, he didn't know. He's my son. I love him. What can we do? And they said, "You know what? He can't know how strong he is. He is a mess. He is, everyone hates him. He's rough. So yes, we'll bring him back to life. We'll put him in the body of, I don't know, a monkey, and we'll wipe his memory so he doesn't know." So there became this monkey named Hanuman, and he had no idea of his power. And he met this man named Ram, and he was the king of India. And they became like best friends for life. They loved each other. Hanuman was so devoted to Ram that everyone in the kingdom was just amazed by this relationship. This monkey loved this god, or this king. But there was a war between Sri Lanka and India, and the Sri Lankan government stole Sita, that's Ram's wife. And Ram said, I have to fight this war, my wife is gone, Hanuman, can you help me? Can you go get her? And he said, sure, I don't know how though. And so he went to the shore and he looked over at Sri Lanka and he sat down in hero's pose. And he didn't know what to do, and he didn't know how he could. But he had faith that his best friend wanted him to. And he loved Sita and he loved Ram. So he jumped. And he jumped all the way over to Sri Lanka in Hanumanasana. So I'm not all the way down because I'm not warm, but with his arms up. So this is Hanumanasana. Toes flexed, toes tucked underneath in the back, arms straight up in the air. And that's like the victorious jump. So he went all the way over and he jumped. And he landed on Sri Lanka and he couldn't find Sita. So he just took the whole mountain and he jumped back to India. And then he set the mountain down and they found her. And once they found her, they won the war and Ram threw a huge party. And it was all for Hanuman, for his effort, for taking Sita back. And Ram, there was this huge table, and Ram gave Hanuman this bracelet. And everyone was quiet. And he said, this is my gift for you, thank you so much. And it was this beautiful gold bracelet with emeralds and rubies, and the whole kingdom was like, holy cow. It was amazing, this monkey got this bracelet. And I wish I had a bracelet right now. Hanuman took the bracelet, and much to the townspeople's dismay, he shook it, hit it, and he bit it, and they were just shocked, like, what are you doing? This is a gift. Why? This is from the king. Like, what are you? And he just gave it back, and he said, it doesn't even say your name on it. Every fiber of my being says Ram on it. I live for you. Every beat of my heart says Ram, 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 and he tore his chest open, and every fiber in his heart said Ram, 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 and you could hear his heartbeat, Ram, 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 Ram. And he said, if this doesn't even have your name on it, I don't want it. So everyone was like, okay, and he put it back. Okay, we feel like dicks now. But Hanuman, it's the story about his endless devotion for his BFF. And the hero's pose is named after Hanuman, monkey pose or Hanumanasa is named after Hanuman. It's just unending devotion and love.
Does he ever find out that he's a god?
I don't know.
But he obviously had the god power, right, in order to be able to jump that
Yeah.
far.
Right.
Yeah.
But he did it for love and devotion, not for.
Not for nothing. It was a selfless. So it's very much Yoga Sutra-y.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Power you didn't know you had.
Yeah.
Was that.
And he just sat down, like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do it. With nothing in his life told him that he could jump across an ocean, and he did it anyway.
Right.
So that is my favorite myth, of all time. It's just so beautiful. Especially because you can imagine, and you can look up pictures of Hanuman, and there's pictures of him with his chest open, with Ram written on every fiber of his being. It's so beautiful. But it's Hanumanasana. So can you say Hanumanasana?
Hanumanasana.
The name Hanuman, does that mean something?
I think it means something, I don't remember the exact transliteration, but it's something from when the gods struck him down and killed him. Like struck. I don't remember exactly. Vira or Virabhadra is hero.
Right.
So this pose is hero's pose. It's Virabhadrasana, and this comes next. So if you notice I just did half splits and full splits because most people can't do full.
Mm-hmm.
It is a combination of two poses, but really it's like a leaned forward runner's lunge, and then you just lean back. That's all it is. So let's come onto your knees. And then get into tabletop. We're not gonna do heroes. Extend your right leg back for a 3-leg tabletop. And bring your right foot up between your hands. Now walk your hands forward and lean forward. And tuck your back toes under. And then walk your hands back and lean back. So press your hips all the way back towards your left heel. Now you can pull your right toes towards your face, option to round forward. And this is half splits. These two together are half splits. So say Ardha,
Ardha.
Hanumanasana.
Ardha.
Let's come forward. Say Hanuman.
Hanuman.
Hanumanasana.
Hanumanasana.
Good. Then go back one more time. So say Ardha Hanumanasana.
Ardha Hanumanasana.
Any pain?
No, I'm just finding, it's my hip going backwards, my hip wants to,
Yeah.
so I'm guessing the point is to keep this leg
Yes,
neutral.
because it's prepped for
Yeah.
splits pose, and if your hip just goes way off to the side, you're not prepping. However, some people are gonna have to go to the side, and that's okay. Maybe eventually they'll come to the center, maybe they won't.
Yeah.
So let's switch legs. If you don't feel a stretch, walk your left foot farther forward, and that'll change it.
So the only difference between this and then runner's lunge is just your toes?
And your hand, yeah.
Okay.
And it's okay to come
Yeah.
way far back. I've had teachers say like you should stay kind of with your hip over your knee.
Oh,
But
sure. I mean, it's always safe to have your hip over your knees. That makes sense.
we just need to kind of like put your, I feel like I have to put this foot further out to like still get some traction.
Yeah.
Yeah, sitting back down,
Is it comfortable? Or
no, do you
uncomfortable?
untuck your toes then?
She has been. She was, yeah.
Well, yeah, but, and you can.
You can. I usually go back and forth. So I'll come forward, then I'll untuck and go back, and then I'll come forward and I'll tuck and go back. That way you have, huh?
I don't like tight.
Yeah, don't do it then.
I wonder why.
With the like keeping your legs straight hip thing,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just wondering if it also just, I mean, you already talked about like ability in people's bodies and stuff like that. I'm wondering specifically with the shape of my body, because if I try to keep this leg up straight because of the shape of my hips, then my left hip gets popped upwards.
Mm-hmm.
But then in order for me to like level my hips, then this leg isn't straight.
Hmm.
Cause it's almost like my hips like, I'm just wondering, does that mean I need to just move my leg out to the side more then?
Will you try it again?
So, yeah, maybe I just have my back leg in too far or
Maybe.
something. And if I scoot it out. Yeah, cause now
Yeah.
my leg is more, I think I just had my back leg
Okay.
in too much.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Answer my own
Because it was,
question. Yeah, because obviously if it's like this.
yeah, it's going to
then-
change it a lot.
Then then the angle is like crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's
Okay.
just me being silly.
Well, good. Any other questions? Yeah, you're welcome. So we got hamstring stretching, calf muscles, quads. People feel it in different spots. If you ever want to, will you get into it again, please? Just the forward part.
Are you supposed to put your chest forward too?
Yeah. I usually do like cow and cats. This is the anterior tilt, and then when you round back is the posterior tilt, because if you keep that going, it helps. But with your right foot, will you walk it farther forward? And then keep walking it forward until you can straighten your right leg. So go all the way forward, or left, it doesn't matter. Now pull your toes towards your face. So you can stay here or walk your foot to your left. All the way. Keep going. Yeah, there you go. Then pull your toes straight up towards the ceiling and then lean forward. So this is a funky variation to stretch your high T-bands. If you don't like it, let it go. And then to get out of it.
The knee doesn't like it. So
Okay.
I can roll up my mat or put a
Yeah.
thing under there.
Yeah.
Back knee?
Yeah.
All the pressure on my knee.
Do you feel it right now?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the alignment's super weird, but it is a funky version if your IT bands feel really tight to get into it. And the IT bands are outside of your hip or outside of your thigh, lateral portion.
So your back leg is straight back as if you're in normal
Mhm.
splits, and then your front leg is off.
Yeah, you just move it, which goes to show that with all the alignment that we learned, sometimes just changing it a little bit gets the stretch that you want.
See, I don't mind it so much on this side.
And you might not feel it in your outer left hip either. Not everybody does.
Okay.
Okay. Prepares your body for full splits or Hanumanasana. Mobilizes your feet and your hips, of course. And the easiest way to get into it is from lunge. So modifications are to use a block on either side to help you lift. And that'll be a modification for splits as well. And that just so you don't have to go hands down to the ground. Especially somebody who's expecting baby or somebody who's blessed with some goodness on their upper body. Sometimes that rounding forward does not work without blocks to help bring the ground closer to you. I would not adjust this. Any questions? Okay, let's go to full splits then. The next pose is monkey pose or Hanumanasana. Yeah. So a couple things to notice about the photo, so page 76, is that eventually we want to work towards your back toes being tucked under. So both tucked under. It's not untucked. Tucked under. If your intention is to just do it without the toes tucked under, that's okay too. We don't need to be a stickler about it. But both hips pointing forward and your arms up overhead. So the energetic direction here is up. Like we want to go up.
Is there something specific with the hands? Or
Mountain arms. No, it just depends on what you want to teach. For modifications, you can write hands to blocks or get a bolster between your thighs. Just sitting down on a bolster or a blanket can be really helpful.
In this picture,
Mhm.
it looks like his back knee is turned out to the side.
So if you notice his left hip, so his hip is rotated. So his pelvis, instead of an anterior tilt or a posterior tilt, there's a rotation. So his left hip is rolled back. So he's warrior twoing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that just because of the flexibility?
Yeah.
Like he's more flexible in that way than, okay.
Yeah, 100%. It's just tilting it because that's what's comfortable. And usually this right here is a step before you being able to pull your hip forward, both hips pointing forward. But if we do half splits over and over again with both hips pointing forward as our goal, it'll be a lot easier to get into full splits without worrying about this. Does that make sense?
Going back
Yeah.
to half splits, is it more of a goal to go back as far as you can while like your head is touching your front leg, or is it just stretching as far forward towards your front leg as possible?
It's both because we're stretching out different parts. So
Right.
when you go forward, we're stretching out your glutes, hamstrings, adductors, when you go forward, but also, when you lean forward, we're stretching out the top of your right hip and the back of your left leg.
Yeah.
But then when you go back, we're stretching out the back of your left leg and we are compressing your right hip in a different way.
I think that I didn't ask my question properly.
Okay.
That is great information, thank you.
But
I guess what I mean is specifically in the back pose, is it like I should just be like this, or is it more like back in this? You see what I mean?
Yeah, like
I
it's your
do.
hips open, yeah.
well, let's think about the benefit. When we hinge forward, what's the benefit?
More of a stretch in the left.
Along your spine,
Okay,
Or-
yes. And when you lean back with your hips back, what's the benefit there?
elongating your hand.
Well, I guess, and then you would be curving, or, I don't know,
Yeah. Depends on your intention, what you're going for.
yeah.
I think that a case could be made for either. I would think because splits is what we're going towards and splits is not hinged forward, that I would just focus on pressing your hip back.
Because
'Cause-
that stretches this out.
Yeah.
But also leaning forward stretches it out.
Yeah.
So, and the main thing is stretching out this hamstring,
Yeah,
whatever.
however you
that's
get there.
what I'm doing that, okay.
Yeah. I don't know if you can tell from the picture, but how far he's leaning forward. Like, I don't want to encourage leaning forward because we already know that this pose, it's easier. Like, that's what we're going. People are going to naturally lean forward. So I usually don't suggest it because then people, when they get into it, will want to hinge forward. Let's get into it.
In half or full?
Full.
Oh.
Yeah. And we want to go upright.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's get into whatever side you want for first. Let's get into half splits. So just 1 foot forward, 1 foot back, doesn't matter. So the way to get into it, once you've done this a couple times, is to walk your right foot forward, walk your left knee back. Walk your right foot forward, or your front foot forward, walk your back foot back. Then take your front foot, turn your toes up, and keep your hands on either side of your hips. So walk your hands up on either side of your hips. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, man.
Draw your back hip forward, your front hip back. Good. And you can just keep your hands down on the ground. Let's say Hanumanasana. Good. So actively pull your front hip back, left hip forward, or back hip forward. There you go. Yep. Pain?
Yeah, I've got like this little bottom mid calf area that kind of, it's not like, it never bugs me except stretching in yoga.
Really?
Yeah.
What about if you
and
pull
so
your...
I back off on it all the time.
Oh, is that why you turn? So back here?
Yeah, exactly right there. And my left leg specifically.
How long has that been hurting?
Probably like since the beginning of yoga teacher training.
Really?
But like, yeah.
Okay.
it's like that thigh.
Is it stopping you from doing anything?
No, I still get in the pose, but I back off, you know.
Okay. Was there any tenderness? No? Just, you feel it just when you stretch?
Yeah, it'll
Okay.
just be like, yeah, and yin or like, yeah, any, you know, like pushing that too hard.
Okay.
And yeah, it's just like that's areas where there's localized pain.
Okay. Scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the worst pain, 1 being like a paper cut. What's the pain at right now?
6, if it pops into it, like scares me.
Okay.
To be like, ooh, I don't want to rip something.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I'm not a doctor, but it sounds like a little bit of
A little
muscle.
rip, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, straight.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. I would continue what you're doing. Don't
Yeah,
don't
exactly.
push through it.
You know,
Because
yeah.
that's what it
Fingers
is.
are bad.
Train is a tear.
Yeah, exactly. It's a mini something.
Yeah. Okay. Good to know.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to do the other side, but let's do the other side just so you feel balanced. Or just get into half splits. Okay. Oh, okay.
See, and this side's so much better. Not better, don't judge me, but more flexible.
Yeah.
But still not able to stick, sit up. Just,
The actually, I always just thought, oh yeah, once you get into it, like, okay, then you just sit up, and I didn't think that it would feel so different.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like all of a sudden it's like, whoa, there's so much more weight on like the forward hip,
Mhm.
not forward hip, the
Forward
side
foot.
of,
my hamstrings
You
do
know,
not enjoy
you know what I
that.
mean.
Yeah, I do know what you mean. Yeah, and so whenever we don't teach this very often because unless you're connecting it to the myth or really want to focus on stretching out your hips,
Nobody can.
we don't need to. Though I will say one time it was the second time around Green Lake that I was rollerblading that I did the splits and I on accident. And if I hadn't done it regularly, I would probably have pulled something, but I just full on went into the splits and then came back up and I ruined my pants and I was like, what just happened? And I thought I ripped something, but I didn't. So functionality wise,
God, you're yoga.
some people do need it, but that was like a freak issue. Any questions about splits?
the best way just for training for that is just doing the half splits?
Yeah.
Or is there anything else?
Just working into it more. Half splits with hands on blocks on either side,
Yeah.
forward and back. People overdo it, so I usually tell people if you really want to do the splits, make sure you take every other day off.
Mm.
It's really easy to strain something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
every other day, and then how long if you were trying to say something, tell someone to they'll do the strips like
Depends on their body and their mobility and their water intake and their compensation patterns and their life history and background. I usually tell people give it a couple of months and you'll definitely see some change. If you don't see change, ask me about it and we'll talk about other ways to get into it. 'Cause sometimes it's just structural
totally.
and you don't want to tell people that in a couple of months you'll see change if
That's
they
not-
don't see change. Like gymnasts, they can do it that day or the next day. Some hips, like my hips, if I warmed up for like 5 minutes, would be able to get into it, but that's only because I've done it so many times. But that took like 2 years. So
I find that I can get into the splits, not full Hanumanasana, like extended upwards, but like in the splits, like after like hatha class. Would
Yeah.
you recommend against that just because it's like,
no, not at all.
okay, because that's something that I've heard just about like hot yoga in general, is just you have to be so careful about like overdoing it, and I don't find that I tend to do that. I mean, would I know immediately because it would
No,
hurt?
you
or
would just walk away feeling maybe something, and then the next day you'd be like, wow, why did that hurt?
Okay.
Hot yoga, it's really good for the healthcare industry because people do injure themselves quite a bit. So financially, it's great for massage therapists and chiropractors, physical therapists, because people do tend to overdo it, especially if it's a competitive, or no, they don't tend to, they can overdo it, especially if it's a competitive atmosphere. But it is a little bit easier, but also, I mean, humans are used to high temperature and moving, so it's,
Yeah,
the
'cause
heat
I
definitely
just find
helps
it's,
with
like,
mobility.
energy's really warmed up.
Yeah.
Not just from the movement, but also from the heat. I guess I just wanted to make sure that that's not dangerous.
Uh,
Because I will, like, sometimes be like, oh, now's probably a good time for me to, like, practice my splits or something.
Yeah.
So I'll just do it for a second on both sides.
Do it, and we'll talk about connective tissues more in that today, actually.
Okay.
So that'll be good.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions about splits? No? Okay, let's take a break then.